حيدر الغزالي. قرر أبي ألا نحمل شيئا. قرر أبي ألا نحمل شيئا من البيت. ترك أشياءنا هانئة في محلها، خلافا للذين أفرغوا بيوتهم وأودعوها للوحشة والهجران. قرر ألا نحمل الأسرة والأرائك ونملأ حقائبنا بملابس للشتاء القادم. هو يعرف أن عودتنا صعبة وبعيدة، إذ تسقط من حولنا البيوت وتختفي. هو يعرف أن الطريق الذي قطعناه يشبه الأيام التي لا تعود وأعوام الهناء، لذا توجب أن نخلع الأبواب والأسرة كالجميع ونطهو عليها طعامنا، لكنه بعينين لا تشبهان الليل سوى في الحزن، ولا النهار سوى في الوضوح. أخبرنا: إن كان لابد أن أتعب، دعوني أحلم أن سريراً وثيراً ينتظرني. شكراً.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Sonja Longolius, the co-director of the Literaturhaus Berlin, and together with my colleague Jannika Gelinek, I would like to welcome you all to our temporary venue here in Alt-Moabit. Thank you for joining us tonight for our series Time for Gaza, Zeit für Gaza. This series is dedicated to the complex and often invisible reality of Gaza, highlighting the literature as a tool of remembrance, resistance, and self-determination. Tonight, we want to focus on international Palestinian authors and their perspectives on the ongoing Nakba. Tonight, we want to listen to international narratives on Gaza and on its destruction. Tonight, we want to look beyond our own noses, über den eigenen Tellerrand hinausschauen, to see beyond the horizon and broaden the German discourse. Jannika and I, together with our team, have often asked ourselves, constantly actually over the past years, what we can do as an institution in difficult times. And yes, these are difficult times, extremely difficult, especially for Palestinian writers, and there's no question about it. On the other hand, we at the Literaturhaus Berlin have always tried to shed light on the political realities of authors worldwide and present interesting international perspectives on this very stage. The series Time for Gaza is thus also a continuation in somewhat of our work, and at the same time still something very exceptional in the current German debate. So before I will introduce our dear guests of tonight, I would therefore like to speak a little bit about the origin of tonight's events. Because even though it may still be difficult to present Palestinian perspectives on German stages, it is by no means impossible. We have, for example, presented literature in different formats. For example, Adania Shibli's novel, Minor Detail, long before the cancellation of her award at the Frankfurt Book Fair, and just recently the cancellation of her play in Berlin. We have offered a trialogue workshop with Shai Hoffman and Joanna Hassoun for teenagers to learn about the situation in Gaza and Israel right after the October 7 attacks. We have invited critical thinkers such as the Holocaust historian and genocide expert Omar Bartov to speak about the destruction of Gaza. And we have initiated this series to give time and space to Palestinian voices in Berlin and beyond, to read their literature and share their experiences. The last episode focused on historical and contemporary texts by authors from Gaza, selected by curator Fadi Abdel Noor in collaboration with Heba Tebaki. Heba, it's very great to have you here tonight. Thank you for joining us. We think that our most important responsibility as a public institution is to offer a shared space, and we often also call it brave space, where we are all invited to listen to each other's literatures and thoughts. We feel our commitment as a place of literature is to continually invite aspiring and established authors from all over the world to tell their stories and to share their experiences. And we have made the experience that all it takes from us as a democratic literary institution is empathy, interest, and commitment. For us as an institution, it simply takes trust in the power of literature and the right to free speech to make an evening as this one possible. However, and especially since the debate in Germany has become so narrow and poisonous within the last years, I can only imagine what it might take international Palestinian writers to join the discourse in this country right now at this very moment. That's why I'm very grateful for tonight's authors to accepting our invitation. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. We welcome our guests to a brave space to share their perspectives on the ongoing Nakba. Tonight is also dedicated to the many Palestinian writers who have been killed and cannot speak to us personally, yet whose literature will remain. Tonight, we welcome Somaia Abu Nada, who will deliver a memorial to her murdered sister Heba Abu Nada by reading her poems to us. We are very honored that Somaia Abu Nada came all the way from Ireland to share her sister's memory with us. Thank you, Somaia, and thank you for being here. Tonight, we will hear Alaa Alqaisi speak about writing through famine and siege. Alaa has co-curated this evening together with the translator Katharine, who's also here, obviously. Thank you for being here. And she will speak to us from Ireland. Unfortunately, her visa was not approved, making it impossible for Alaa to join us in person tonight. The arbitrariness in the issuance of visas is therefore also part of the story of the origin of this evening, and it is still a bitter truth for many people who want to come to this country. Tonight we will hear the poetry of Batool Abu Akleen, who will speak to us from Paris due to the same problematic visa situation. However, we are very grateful to be able to include Batool's voice in literature thanks to our live stream, and you will later meet Alaa and Batool via our stream. With us tonight is the Berlin-based Palestinian actress Lamis Ammar, who will read Palestinian texts from Gaza and beyond in Arabic, German, and English. And you have already heard one of the poems at the beginning. Many of these texts are new or unpublished, and several are being heard in English or German translation for the very first time tonight. The translators who made this possible are Nuria Belul, Wiam El-Tamami, Ada Fardadin, Katharine Halls, and Sandra Hetzel. The Egyptian author and translator, Wiam El-Tamami, will host the evening. And I would very much like to thank Katharine Halls and Alaa Alqaisi for working together with us and curating this international evening of Palestinian literature. And I would like to thank our team for the careful preparation of this evening. But above all, and I hope you will now join in with some applause, a warm applause, I would like to thank tonight's guests for their courage and trust. So let's all dare to look beyond our own Tellerrand, and please welcome everybody with a warm round of applause. Thank you.
Can I have some? Thank you. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to you all. Can you hear me okay? Great. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to the Literaturhaus for hosting this event. Thank you to Katharine Halls and Alqaisi, who you'll be meeting soon, for curating it. My name is Wiam El-Tamami. I'm an Egyptian writer and translator based here in Berlin. And over the past year and a half, I've had the privilege to work closely with a number of Palestinian writers in Gaza. And some of them have also become dear friends. So this is a topic very close to my heart, including a few whose work you'll actually see here today. I'm looking forward to this evening together, to just listening to these texts and being in the presence of this work. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the first piece of the evening, which inspired the curators in choosing the theme of this event, which is writing the ongoing Nakba. The piece is called Reflections on the 75th Anniversary of the Nakba, and it was written by Mohammed Kurd, who is a Palestinian writer, journalist, and organizer. His latest book is called Perfect Victims and the Politics of Appeal. This article was written in May 2023, so it was written a few months before the start of this latest genocidal war on Gaza, and it was published in The Nation. And the link is in your program in case you'd like to read the rest of it. The full article is online, and Lamis Ammar will be reading an extract from this piece.
Mohammed al-Kurd, Reflections on the 75th Anniversary of the Nakba. If you are driving across the length of our bruised geography, you will at various points encounter rubble. Sometimes it is the rubble of a house in Jerusalem, demolished once or more than once in the past few decades. Other times it is the ruins of a village, depopulated in 1948, now poorly concealed under a forest of pine trees planted by the Jewish National Fund. Sometimes it is the rubble of a bullet-strafed home in the occupied Syrian Julan, which came to its knees during the 1967 invasion. Other times, it is the rubble of a residential building bombed during one of the assaults on the besieged Gaza Strip in 2008, 9, 12, 14, 19, or 21. Or, if you are reading this a few years from now, it may well be the wreckage of Silwan, Masafir and the Naqab, towns that are still bustling but threatened. As you breeze through this landscape, you will likely come across towns and refugee camps with posters of our martyrs pinned all over the walls. The dates on some of the posters may be difficult to decipher, but you can guess when they were first plastered by looking at their condition. If they are pristine and vibrant, they are fresh off the press. If brittle and faded, damaged by the rain, dirt, or stray bullets, and peeling off the walls, they might be from some time ago, the second intifada or one of the intifadas that came after. Many, likely most, of the faces will be unfamiliar to you, for they have been killed outside the international news cycle. Their deaths marked only by fleeting local headlines. If you slow down to read, you might find portraits of a father and a son sharing the same wall, an uncle and a niece, sometimes from the same year, sometimes generations apart. All of these tattered posters, half-buried villages, and rubble, 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 is the material evidence of the Nakba. It's a term that is most often used to denote the catastrophic creation of the Israeli state, when Zionist militias waged a brutal campaign of ethnic cleansing, expelling 750,000 Palestinians and rendering them refugees outside of the borders of their own homeland. It should be a household name, although it is not. The English translation, Nakba, catastrophe, is reductive, because the Nakba wasn't a sudden disaster, nor is a tragic relic from the past. It didn't begin or end in 1948. Rather, it is planned, organized, and most important, an ongoing process of ethnic cleansing. For Palestinians, the Nakba is relentless and recurring. It happens in the present tense, and it happens everywhere on the map. Not a corner of our geography is spared. Not a generation since the 1940s. For my own family, the Nakba was my grandmother's experience of expulsion from Haifa by the Haganah in 1948. But it was also her cautionary tales warning me of what would inevitably be my fate when army-backed settlers with Brooklyn accent took over half of my home in Sheikh Jarrah in 2009, declaring my house their own by divine decree. For other families, the Nakba began when a beloved grandfather was expelled from Jaffa and sought refuge in Gaza, where it continues in the rumble of the warplanes dropping bombs on overcrowded refugee camps, introducing his grandchildren to their first, or perhaps third or sixth war. It is their faces on the posters that are yet to be printed. Thank you.
Thank you, Lamis, for that reading and that beginning. I would now like to invite Alaa Alqaisi to join us. Let's hope this works. Alaa will be joining us now. Yes, there she is. Hello, Alaa. It's really lovely to see you. Alaa is also a personal friend of mine, so I'm very happy that she's here tonight. She's the co-curator of this evening, and she's also going to be sharing some of her work with you all today. So Alaa Alqaisi is a Palestinian writer, translator, and researcher from Gaza with an MA in Translation Studies. She primarily writes essays, which have been featured in Literary Hub, Arab Lit, the Avery Review, the New York War Crimes, and Adi magazine. Did I miss anything?
All is
well. Okay. She was evacuated from Gaza in August and is currently pursuing her PhD at Trinity College Dublin. She'll be reading from an essay called Beneath the Howl of Hunger. And I would really recommend looking for her other essays as well. They're all available online, and they're really, they're very beautiful, very powerful and poignant, but also somehow she has this very unsentimental, very clear-eyed way of writing and looking at the world. So I would really recommend looking into her work. So Alaa and I will have a short conversation, and then she'll be reading an excerpt from her piece, Beneath the Howl of Hunger. So welcome, Alaa. So good to see you.
Thank you.
Now, actually, could you tell us a little bit about where you are, where you're sitting?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm in Dublin now, in Ireland. I've been here since September, and I'm doing my PhD in Trinity College. And it's a big change after Gaza, but I'm slowly finding my rhythm now.
Okay. And what are you doing your PhD on? Actually, this is my chance to ask my friends questions that I don't get to ask them. I don't actually know the details. Can you tell us a little bit about the details of what your PhD is on?
Yeah. Now I'm working in the Irish poet Yeats and war writing, but through Edward Said's reading of him. As he shows Yeats as a decolonizing poet and negotiation between the colonial power and the anti-colonial resistance, you know. So from there, I began to put Yeats with other Arab poets who are responding to their other wars and political events. So I'm comparing them, so it would be like a comparative study at the end.
Okay, wow. We're looking forward to seeing how that develops. I know this is quite a segue, but can you tell us a little bit about the circumstances in which this essay that you're sharing with us today, Beneath the Howl of Hunger, can you tell us a little bit about the circumstances in which it was written?
Yeah, I wrote this essay during the second famine in Gaza in 2024, when people were already talking very clearly about starvation. It wasn't an idea that comes to my mind in a quiet day, so it came from a living reality on empty stomach and heavy heart. The whole city was starving and was hungry, and people were collapsing in the streets. And you could feel how bodies and minds were collapsing too. At that time, I used to go to a workspace in Gaza daily, and I sit for hours. I was working, and in reality, I was just escaping the feeling of hunger and the feeling of the war itself. Writing this essay specifically, it was a burden. It was a necessity too. I had almost nothing left in my hand but language. So I told myself, if writing is the only tool I have to use it. I wanted to say very clearly, like Gazan people are being starved, not as a metaphor, but as an actual bodies. And I was trying to write hunger in my own stomach and the hunger I saw in my family, my people, the whole city. And on that day, actually, in the day I wrote this essay, I remember a scene. I was walking on the Jalaa street and saw a young boy picking a few beans from the ground one by one. And I could not stop him. I could not buy him food. I could not take him home. I just walked past and felt completely powerless. So this image stayed with me all day. I could not do anything, just writing this piece. And before that, I had watched like hunger in other places, like Yarmouk camp in Syria when I was a child, and I thought I could imagine it, but when it entered my body, I understood that this is something you never really know until you experience. So I think that's the circumstances where I wrote this piece.
Thank you. I'm always curious to hear what kept, I don't know if this is, of course, answer as much of this as you're comfortable with, but what kept you going during that time, or what keeps you going now? What are the things that still gave you energy and kept you going?
I'm not sure if I have a heroic answer to that. I think part of it is that my body is still in survival mode now. There is a feeling that follows me all the time. I survived. Many people who were better than me didn't. So I carry that with me all the time. And what keeps me going is the sense that survival has to mean something. If I was allowed to live when others were killed, then I don't want that to be random. I want my survival to do some kind of work in this world. I would love to tell the stories of my people, because sometimes the stories are the only thing that remains. I also think a lot about people like Rifat al-Arair, who gave so much of his life for teaching, for writing, for insisting that Gaza's voice would be heard, and then he was killed. When someone like this person is taken, you feel that the responsibility doesn't vanish with them, you know. It moves the people who are still alive. So what keeps me going, I think, Wiam, is the mixture of love, guilt, duty at the same time. So as long as I'm here, I have to keep speaking, I have to keep writing, and I have to carry my people's voice forward. That's my answer.
Thank you, Alaa. What are you working on right now? What can we expect? Or if are there things that you're willing to share? That what can we look out for? Or what are you reading?
I'm reading on Yeats all the time. So I'm doing my PhD, as you know. So I'm also reading on Yeats, but I'm working on essays about the contrapuntal feeling to be in exile and in home at the same time. It's what Edward Said described as the contrapuntal reading of exile. So this kind of things, yeah.
Thank you. Would you like to read for us?
Yes. Beneath the howl of hunger. Long before hunger lays claim to the body, it loosened the scaffolding of language, erasing clarity, dismantling rhythm, and leaving behind the fragile debris of thought. What begins as a coherent paragraph soon dissolves into fragments, until all that remains is the involuntary tremor of a mind too starved to hold meaning. And so, before my language deserts me entirely, I write this, less to be understood than to remain traceable, to leave behind the shape of thought before it slips into silence. I try to lose myself in work, to forget, even momentarily, this pain that coils around our small besieged city. 'Tis not simply the ache of separatory grief, though there is plenty of both. 'Tis a physical, relentless hunger that knows from within, rising with a low, constant howl that reverberates through the body like a second heartbeat. It clings into my ribs, like a curse whispered too many times to be undone. No matter how I attempt to distract myself, by folding the same shirt again, by translating a familiar line, by stirring salt into boiling water, as if that might change it, hunger resurfaces with a quiet authority, like a smoke seeping through invisible cracks in the floor. The letters on my screen blur. Words I once wielded with ease now evade me, slipping out of reach as if they, too, are trying to escape this place. I rise to pray, but the moment I stand, dizziness seizes me, sharp and sudden, wrapping its fingers around my throat. My legs tremble beneath me, and I wonder if I have become too hollow to stand before God. Hunger develops its own language, a silent one. It doesn't arrive with a drama or noise, but rather seeps into the body and mind until both are softened, pent, worn. It lays itself down like dust, on thoughts, on memories, on the fragile shell of a skin. George Orwell, whose words once seemed to belong to another time and place, now speaks directly to the private vertigo behind my eyes. Hunger reduces one to an utterly spineless, brainless condition, as though one had been turned into a jellyfish. That metaphor, once abstract, now feels precise. This is what I have become, structureless, adrift, incapable of anchoring thought to intention. I reach for an idea and find it dissolving before I can grasp it, leaving behind only a pale impression of what once lived in clarity. There are moments when Gaza feels less like a city and more like a residue of a nightmare that belonged to someone else, some faraway spectator who dreamed it into being and then forgot to wake up. It doesn't feel like part of the world, not in the way cities are connected to rivers or nations or time. Instead, it feels as though we have been stitched into a parallel script, a myth reenacted endlessly for the benefit of one has no moral arc, no catharsis. There is no end to the horror, no fade to black. that children here continue to age without ever growing up. The elders speak of bread the way others speak of lost lovers, and somewhere, always, there is an audience asking how this story ends. But for those of us living it, there's no ending, only the slow receding of possibility with each day of silence. Hunger reveals the truths no one seeks. It strips away every comfort and illusion and shows what remains when there is nothing left to lose. I have learned that dignity is not a possession, but a practice. It emerges in the way one endures, not in what one owns. I have come to understand that memory, too, is a form of defiance. To name one's pain, to record it faithfully, is to refuse erasure. I don't seek pity. Pity flatters. It turns Gaza into an object, a cautionary tale, a headline too often repeated to provoke response. What I seek, what I insist upon, is remembrance, not simply of the hunger, but of the minds it had clouded, the hands that tremble over final cup of tea, the eyes that scans the sky not for stars, but for signs of fire. And when the word finally turns the page, if it ever does, let it not say that Gaza was silent. Let it not imagine we vanished without speaking. We spoke with mouths filled with dust. We sang even with broken teeth. We prayed from fractured knees. And though the word may have looked away, let this much be remembered. We named the hunger. We pour it. We endured. Let that remain. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alqaisi. The next piece is a poem by Haneen Amin. Haneen Amin is a Palestinian writer from Jenin. She writes poetry, novels, and children's books. This poem is called Our Mother Would Not Let Anyone Write on Our Bodies, and it's newly translated into English by Katharine Halls and will be read now by Lamis Ammar.
My mother wouldn't let anyone write on our bodies. She calls us into the tent, between her chapped fingers a favorite black pen that once lived in a drawer in our bookcase. She begins with me. Ahmad, come close. She writes out my name on my hand, Ahmad Fahmi Rashid Saleh. Mother's name, Abir. Age, 9. Blood group, A+. Then our old address, the building, the neighborhood. She writes this, kissing as she goes, on each palm and each arm, on my back, on both thighs. She writes it again, on my belly, my chest, and the soles of my feet. She calls my sister Heba, and I read as she writes, the same thing, only Heba is 5. Then Rashid, who is 3, but his body is too small for the words. She sighs. Rashid won't go astray, she says. They'll work out it's him. He'll be in my arms. She tilts her head and gives a faint smile. Don't worry. I've written all over my body. I'm the mother of Ahmad, Rashid, and Heba, and the wife of Fahmi Saleh, the martyr. They'll keep us together. They'll keep us together, even if we are in pieces. Thank you.
Thank you, Lamis. The next piece we'll be listening to today is by Sara Aziza. Sara Aziza is a Palestinian-American writer, translator, and artist. She's the author of The Hollow Half, a memoir of bodies and borders, which was published this year and won the Palestine Book Awards. The text we'll be listening to is a short extract from this book, and it examines the word Nakba. It's been translated into German by Nuria Behlul. And Lamis will be reading this as well. Thank you, Lamis.
Sure. With pleasure.
With all the languages as well.
Yeah, now with the German. This will be slow. Okay. Nakba, Arabischkurs 3. Das Wort Nakba war einst von keiner Bedeutung für uns. Heute ist es die Erzählung, der wir nicht entkommen können. Nakba ist unser Wohnort, unser Urknall. Sie beziffert die Partikel in unserem Universum, beschreibt die Grenzen des Möglichen. Nakba ist all das, was nicht ist, eine verhaftete Geschichte. Träume, die zu Lügen werden und die Lügen, die wir handhaben, anstatt zu träumen. Nakba von der Wurzel Nun, Kaf, Ba, welche ursprünglich sich wegdrehen, schwanken bedeutete, aber auch jemanden unglücklich machen. Eine Achse, eine Welt, die sich ein bisschen weiter weg von der Sonne dreht. Interessanterweise teilt mir ein brillanter arabischer Sprachwissenschaftler mit, war die erste Bedeutung von Nakba eine durch einen Stein verursachte Fußverletzung. Ein Stein, ein von seinem Platz gebrochenes Stück Welt. Davids Gebet hart geworden, um das Gehirn des Philisters zu durchbohren. Ein Stein, wie die gegen Siedlersoldaten geschleuderten, die mit Kugeln und kaputten Knochen gekontert werden. Ein verletzter Fuß, ein Henken, ein ungewolltes Krummen. Irgendwann, fügt der Professor hinzu, ändert sich die Bedeutung von Nakba zu Katastrophe, Unglück, Desaster, etc. etc. 3 Buchstaben, die alles Mögliche beschreiben können. Eine Definition von etc. Der Tag, an dem Israel Unabhängigkeit verkündet. Eine verkehrte Welt. Heimat wird Feind. 1948 wird die Hälfte der palästinensischen Bevölkerung, mindestens 700.000, aus ihren Häusern vertrieben. Unter die Erde gedruckte Körper, Gefangenen genommene Geschichten, eine neu gezeichnete Karte. Einige nennen es den palästinensischen Auszug ohne jegliche Ironie. Einige Familien begehen dieses Ereignis jeden Mai. Andere, wie meine, lassen den Tag still vergehen. Etc. ist einfacher auszuhalten. Shukran.
Thank you, Lamis.
أصعب الألماني.
The most hardworking person here today, Lamis Ammar, reading all the text, almost. We'll give Lamis a break
pleasure.
for one moment now, and we would like to welcome Somaia Abu Nada to the stage. Somaia Abu Nada is joining us here today to pay tribute to the life and work of her sister, Heba Abu Nada. Somaia will be reading 2 of Heba's poems right now, and then later in the evening she'll read a memorial that she's written for her sister. Heba Abu Nada was a Palestinian poet, novelist, and educator. Her novel, El-Oxygen Laysa lil-Mawta, Oxygen is Not for the Dead, won second place in the Sharjah Award for Arab Creativity in 2017. On October 20, 2023, she was killed in her home in Gaza by an Israeli airstrike. She was 32 years old. Somaia Abu Nada is an Arabic language lecturer at Trinity College Dublin and a social impact analyst at Rethink Ireland. She holds an MPhil in intercultural communication from Trinity College Dublin and a master's in translation studies from the Islamic University of Gaza. Somaia will be reading a poem called I Grant You Refuge in English, translated by Huda Fakhreddin, and Sab'a Samawat Lil Watan in Arabic. So thank you, Somaia, for joining us and for being here today.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you everyone for attending this event. I really wish like my sister to be here to read her poems, but you know, her words are here, so I'm going to read it. I'm going to start with one of her favorite poems. It's called Sab'a Samawat al-Watan, which means 7 skies for the home. And Heba says, لنا برئاتنا وطن وفي أنفاسنا منفى يهرول في خلايانا فتقطعه الخطى زحفا يعربش في حقول الحزن دالية من الغرباء أين تدور أعينهم سرى بالدمع ملتفا وقد أهدى لنا لحنا وباع بأثره العزفا أنكره وينكرنا ونعلم أنه دمنا وأنا نتقن النزف قرأت الجوع قاموسا فكان الخبز واللقمة يهشم ضوءنا كسرا تعيل عجائز العتمة وقد أسرفت في عشقي ليمنحني الهوى الحكمة وفي صحراء قافيتي كتبت قصيدة الغيمة وعاد لنا بلا ثوب ويدري كيف يلبسنا يخبئ في الدمى بحرا وفي دقاتنا سفنا رصيف في وسائدنا وفي أحلامنا مدنا ألا يخفو بنا أزلا إذا ما استنسخ الزمن غريب ها هنا الزيتون والألوان والنكهة وما في الكون متسع لنا فكأنه ردها فنحن فضائح تمشي كأن حنيننا جرم وحب بلادنا شبهة. And now I'm going to read her one of her other poem. In Arabic, it calls أعيذك, and it was translated by the greater translator Huda Fakhreddin, and I'm going to read the translation in English. So, أعيذك means I grant you. So, Heba says, I grant you refuge in invocation and in prayer. I bless the neighborhood and the minarets to guard them from the rocket, from the moment it is a general's command until it becomes a right. I grant you and the little one refuge, the little ones who change the rocket's course before it lands with their smiles. I grant you and the little one's refuge, the little ones now asleep like a chick in nests. They don't walk in their sleep toward the dreams. They know death lurks outside the house. Their mother's tears are now dove following them, trailing behind every coffin. I grant the father refuge, the little one's father who hold the house upright when it tilts after the bombs. He implores the moment of death. Have mercy, spare me a little while. For their sake, I've learned to love my life. Grant them the death as beautiful as they are. I grant you refuge from hurt and death, refuge in glory of our siege, here in the belly of whale. Our street exalt God with every bomb. They pray for the mosque and the houses, and every time the bombing begins in the north, our supplications rise in the south. I grant you refuge from hurt and suffering. With words script, I shield the oranges from the string of phosphorus and the shades of cloud from the smog. I grant you refuge in knowing that the dust will clear, and they who fell in love and die together will one day laugh. Thank you so much.
Where's Lamis? Lamis has abandoned us. Yes, we need you again. Thank you, Somaia.
Shukran.
We're very happy that you're here with us today.
Thank you.
Lamis,
أيوة.
you're up next.
يلا.
So the next piece is by Sara Abu Ghazel, a Palestinian writer and feminist activist who grew up in Beirut. This excerpt is from her book, which is called Ihlami Ya Sidi, which has been translated into English by Katharine Halls again, and will be published by Feminist Press in 2026, so it's not yet published. The English title is Dreams of Eine, and the novel tells of the Abu Sukkar family refugees from a fictional village in the Galilee who end up in Shatila, Lebanon. Each chapter is told from the perspective of a different family member, and the novel vividly illustrates that the Nakba was not simply a series of acts of violence, but a brutal foreclosure of existential possibilities. As Abu Ghazel herself explains, time is central to us as Palestinians because the Nakba did not only steal our land and our homes, but our future. The excerpt we'll be listening to today is set in the aftermath of the Sabra and Shatila massacre.
I considered moving back to Shatila after the massacre. I felt a great sense of responsibility and I needed to be in a place I knew. But our old house was being rented out to a family whose youngest son and his bride had been killed. They found the door open and his dead body hanging half outside the house, while his wife had been found some distance away, already rotting in the hot sun. Nobody talks about how the smell of death lingered for weeks and how it gradually faded from the outer edges of the camp but withdrew to certain spots where it festered. As people repaired and cleared and tidied and held the long ritual of mourning, from which Shatila never really recovered, they would smell the odor of death and know that a piece of somebody was still lying just under the dirt or beneath the rubble. For many years, that smell pursued the women whenever they sat down to drink coffee, and they'd become distracted as they searched for a source. It was the compass of their intuition that something bad was going to happen, because bad things, very bad things, did happen to Shatila. How often the camp was destroyed, how often its people revived it, only for it to end up that place where the market peters out and nobody wants to go any further. When my mother lost her mind, she'd imagine she was in our house in Shatila. It was the closest thing we had to hometown, the site of our Nakba. I didn't see Salim for several months after the massacre. While he was gone, the Israelis entered the city and ordered us all down to the entrances of our buildings. In our building, there was no one left but me and Abu Muhammad. who told them I was his son. They took us on foot to the municipal recreation ground where we knelt for nearly 12 hours straight. When they released us, it was pitch black. The only light came from the bombs. You could hear our bodies trembling. I saw my father's soul that night. I sensed that somebody wearing a tarbush was hovering around me. And I tried to steal a glance several times, but the soldiers would spot me from a distance and bark, "Head down, animal," in his broken Arabic. Every 5 minutes, somebody would try to look up, and every 5 minutes came the same comical yell. "Wati rasak, Khaywan!" I'd be lying if I said I didn't smile in defiance of the specter of death hanging over us. I understood we were raising our heads on purpose, just to make the soldiers say it, just to give ourselves a laugh despite everything. Shukran.
Thank you, Lamis. Now I would love to invite Batool Abu Akleen to join us via video. Batool, hello. There you are. Hi. Batool is a Palestinian writer from Gaza. She writes poetry and essays and has been making some forays into literary translation as well. She's the co-author of Voices of Resistance, Diaries of Genocide. And she is 20 years old. I always like to say this because it's just, it's incredible how much she's done in such a short amount of time. So the poems we'll be listening to today are from her debut poetry collection, which just came out this year by Tenement Press. The collection is called 48 Kilograms. I would really recommend it. And it contains 48 poems representing the dwindling weight of a young woman's body. So the first poem is 48 kilograms, the second poem is 47 kilograms, and so on. It has been chosen as a 2025 Book of the Year by the New Statesman, and it's getting wonderful reviews everywhere. It's a bilingual collection, Arabic and English, and actually Batool translated many of the poems herself with the help of Christina Viti and a few other translators. And the German translation we'll be listening to today is by Sandra Hetzel. Batool and I also recorded a beautiful conversation together recently for the Palestinian Festival of Literature podcast, the PalFest podcast. So you're welcome to listen to that if you'd like to hear more about her life and work. So welcome, Batool. Very happy that you're here with us today.
Thank you so much.
Maybe we can start with a poem. So if Batool, if you could read for us, "This is how I cook my grief" in Arabic, and then if Lamis could follow with the German, sure. That would be wonderful.
Sure. 44 كيلوغرام هكذا أطهو حزني أقطف من الشارع قلوبا طازجة أختار أكثرها خيبة بيد خفيفة أسرق الدموع أعبئ رائحة الحزن في علب السردين الصدئة نظرات الأمهات تلتصق بأعينهن بشدة فأخطفها برشاقة لأني أشبه أطفالهن في قدر نحاسي أغلي كل مسروقاتي أضيف لها دما لم تشربه الأرض بعد ونشارة تابوت كان بابا لبيته الجديد أسكب الخليط في قلبي فيصبح أسودا هكذا أطهو حزني. Thank you.
Ich lese frische Herzen von der Straße auf, nehme nur die niedergeschmettersten. stehle flink ein paar Tränen, fülle den Geruch von Trauer in rustige Sardinenbuchsen. Die Blicke der Mutter, die fest an ihren Augen haften, schnappe ich mir mühelos, denn ich sehe ihren Kindern ähnlich. In einem Kupferkessel bringe ich all mein Diebesgut zum Kochen, füge etwas Blut hinzu, das noch nicht in die Erde gesickert ist, und das Sägemehl eines Sarges, der als Tour dient für sein neues Heim. Erst gieße ich mir die Mischung ins Herz, dann wird es schwarz. So bereite ich meinen Kummer zu. Shukran.
Batool, this must be your first time listening to it in German, right?
Yes.
How is it for you, the experience of... is it the first time something of yours has been translated into German, or have you had something translated before? I'm not sure, actually.
I'm not sure also. There might be some German translations.
Great that this has happened for this event. So where are you now? Can you tell us a little bit about where you are now?
Now I'm in Paris. I was evacuated around a month ago from Gaza. I witnessed the whole genocide from the beginning until the end, and then I was able to go out. I'm currently, or I suppose to be a student of English literature and translation at the Sorbonne Nouvelle. So I'll be studying English translation, but like between English and the French. So now I have to learn French.
Whoops. Good luck.
You can tell that I'm enjoying learning it.
Say that again.
I'm saying that you can tell that I'm enjoying learning French.
Well, you just arrived. We'll give you a few months before we ask you again about that. Yeah. And okay, I have so many questions, but we don't have so much time. But one of the things that we often talk about, and I wonder how your thoughts are evolving about that, because we often talk about writing and what writing means to you. Because I know that there are moments, or maybe longer than moments, especially during the genocide, where you really lost any faith that there was any meaning, any sense to even writing or trying to put words to paper. And but I know it has also brought you a lot of things, like also has brought a lot of people into your life, and I know it also gives you a lot. So I'm curious to hear more about that in this moment.
Well, at the beginning of the genocide, I stopped at all writing. I didn't write at all because I felt it's really useless. Like, why to write? And after then, I started to get back to writing because it was something my father wanted so much. He was still in the north, and like we were separated, so he was in the north and I was with my mother and my siblings in the south. And like every time he used to call us, he always asked, "What about you writing? Are you still writing?" And this was like the main reason of why I got back to writing. In many stages, really, I felt it's just why to do that? What, like, tell the story to who, really? Nobody can do anything. So why should I document it even? To the future generation, I just couldn't see anything farther than what's going on. But I just continued writing in a way or another. And then I reached a point that I don't know why I felt so much. Well, basically, like, it's obvious why I felt so much in every single moment that I'm going to be killed. And for this reason, I started collecting my poems, and you see them in this poetry collection, 48 kilograms, because as I wrote in the introduction, I'm just collecting my flesh in case that there was nobody to do that if I got killed. So I consider my poems as part of my flesh. This is mainly why I wrote this poetry collection. And I think it helped me to form the pain I'm feeling, to understand it in a way or another, to give it this kind of label or shape, which helped me a bit, not too much, to deal with it. And I think I'm grateful to poetry nowadays because I'm surrounded by many lovely friends, mostly poets. So I'll be always grateful to poetry for introducing me to people, even if I felt that it's useless sometimes, especially during the really last period before I was evacuated from Gaza. I started really to consider, like, what if I got killed because of my poetry? What if anything happened to my family just because of me, because I decided to spread my poetry around the world? So it's so complicated.
Yeah. There's a beautiful line that I'm remembering now in the introduction to your book where you talk about how when you translated the poems, you came to terms with death. I have not asked you about that line, but it's something that always stayed with me. Is that something, can you tell us a bit more about what you meant by that?
I'm still trying to find the line. So if you can maybe repeat it.
The very beginning, you say something like, I can't remember what the writing part is, but you say that writing these poems, you were talking about death or preparing yourself for the possibility of death, and then in translating them to English, you somehow came to terms with death. Do you remember this line? Or can you?
Yeah, yes. The translation helped me to really see the poems from a different perspective, and just to try to be some kind of outside the scene. So it helped me in this way, just really to understand what's going on and to be okay with all what's happening, and to be more like a poet rather than someone who's witnessing what's going on. So I was more like a translator, an editor at the same time of my poetry, when I just dealt with that in English, not in Arabic.
And what about your essays? Because I feel like there are a lot of interviews about your poetry, but now you're starting to write essays as well. I think, have you written 2 so far?
I think 3.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can you tell us a little bit about the essays and what they're about and what you're working on next as well?
Currently, like, I finished 3 essays. I just remembered the 3rd one while Alaa was reading for us her devastating essay. So I wrote one about hunger, one about the translation and my relationship between Arabic and English and all these things, which was translated by Wiam El-Tamami and will be published in the coming issue by Mizna. And the 3rd one was about women and womanhood and my own experience as a new growing up woman in Gaza and all these kind of difficulties I faced. And not only I faced, actually many like me faced in Gaza. I love etymology so much. So etymology basically is like part of science, we consider it, I guess, but she studies the origins of words from where they came. So I love really playing with language, and this helps me so much with understanding how I feel in a way or another. It's so crazy how I just discovered that many words are connected to each other's. So this really made me discover that the humans are just more intellectual than I expected ourselves to be. So yeah, this is mainly what I've been doing. I think I'll write more essays. I'm more into essays than poetry nowadays. So hopefully, maybe, my next book will be a collection of essays, not poetry. Who knows?
After you've had some rest and learned some French, and then and then we can see.
We'll see.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Batool. It's really lovely to have you here. And a huge relief that you've been able to leave as well. And would you like to read the last poem for us? I think, if it's okay with Lamis, if you could read it first in German, and then we can also end with Batool reading in Arabic.
أكيد. Ich will ein Grab mit marmornem Grabstein, das meine Liebsten gießen und Rosen darauf legen, wo sie weinen können, wenn die Sehnsucht sie ins Auge sticht. Mich erreichen die Tränen ja nicht. Ich werde also auch nicht traurig. Ich will ein Grab für mich allein, wo meine Freunde mit mir reden, mein letzter Anspruch auf Einzigartigkeit. Mein Schatz pflanzt mir eine höhliche Bougainvillea, die mir Schatten schenkt unter der Sommersonne und im Frühling ein purpurnes Kleid. Im Winter fallen Blütenblätter auf mich wie eine warme Decke. Ich will ein Grab in einem Friedhof, wo meine Nachbarn sich ins Leben kuschelten, es liebkosten, ihm 2 Küsse auf die Wangen drückten und dann einschliefen. Ich will ein Grab. Ich will nicht, dass mein Leichnam am Straßenstrand verrottet. Shukran. Danke.
And Batool?
She didn't like this German. I finished this one in German.
No, well, it was good.
You can start working on your German as well, so German, French, you can do it all together.
No, please, French enough. 93 كيلوغرام. أريد قبرا. أريد قبرا بشاهد رخامي يسقيه أحبتي يضعون الورد عليه يبكون حين يخدش أعينهم الحنين لا تصلني دموعهم فلا أحزن. أريد قبرا لي وحدي ليحدثني الأصدقاء ليكون لي أحقية التفرد للمرة الأخيرة. أريد قبرا لا يلاصق القبر الآخر فيزرع لي حبيبي جهنمية تظلني من شمس الصيف تلبسني فستانا أرجوانيا في الربيع ويتساقط ورقها علي كغطاء دافئ في الشتاء. أريد قبرا في مقبرة جيراني فيها التحفوا الحياة داعبوها طبعوا قبلتين على وجنتيها ثم غفوا. أريد قبرا لا أريد لجثتي أن تتفسخ على قارعة الطريق. شكرا.
شكرا يا بتول. Our next piece is by Mohammed Zazu. Mohammed Zazu is a writer, editor, and researcher from Khan Yunis, Gaza. His poetry collection, Betrayed by the Soothsayers, was awarded the 2018 Khalili Prize for Poetry. His writing has appeared in the Paris Review, the New York Review of Books, the Phenomenalist, the Berlin Review, and the Massachusetts Review, lots of reviews, as well as in numerous other publications in Arabic, French, German, Italian, and Dutch. He is the co-editor of Letters from Gaza, which was published by Penguin this year, and the author of a forthcoming memoir about the genocide. Today we'll be listening to an excerpt from this memoir, which will soon be published in Arabic, English, and Dutch. This section that we'll be listening to today takes place at the end of 2023, after Muhammad, his wife, and 3 small children were forced to leave their flat and escape to Rafah, where they took refuge in an office building with other homeless families, while his parents and siblings remained in Khan Yunis. Muhammad visited Berlin for a conference in 2022, and in this excerpt he mentions having chosen to return to Gaza rather than stay in Germany. And the English translation is by Katharine Halls, and I'll be reading it myself. Muhammad Zazu. The year was breathing its last. As December drew to an end, we were filled with a sense of anticipation that the war would end along with it. I don't know where this idea came from, that the one thing would necessarily lead to the other, because the war showed no sign of ending, but in fact thundered on like a raging torrent, sweeping away people, buildings, roads, whole neighborhoods. I think we were trying to muster any hope we could, trying to invent some way of coping with the horrors that had continued unabated for nearly 3 months now. Of all the wars we'd lived through in Gaza, none had been on this scale in either violence or duration. On New Year's Eve, we sat on wooden chairs in the office building's covered yard. Everybody had gone to bed, and it was pitch black and empty. A chill breeze blew insistently, and in the dark depths of the sky we could see flashes of light, followed by the sound of bombs exploding in the distance. Military planes were bombarding Khan Yunis, and it was clearly audible from where we were on the western side of Rafah. And all the while, the world was celebrating the close of one year and the advent of another. People elsewhere were marveling at the glitter of fireworks, partying joyfully, and making wishes for a new and better year ahead, while here, under the same sky, people were dying. Abu Karam took a long drag on his cigarette, then blew the smoke into the empty space where we sat glumly in silence. "Well, that's life for you," he said. "Everyone else is having a good time, and we're just hoping to God no one will die tonight. But you know what? I'm going to celebrate in my own way." All eyes turned to watch as he pulled his phone from his pocket and pressed play on a song. It was Kulthum. We stared like we were trying to dissuade him from committing a grave sin, the sin of listening to the voice of the legendary lady while bombs fell all around. Only Abu Rami was in favor. "What is it? What's wrong with you all?" asked Abu Karam, staring back at us. "If you don't want to listen, get up and go somewhere else." "بعيد عنك حياتي عذاب ما تبعدنيش بعيد عنك ماليش غير الدموع أحباب معايا بعيش بعيد عنك غلبني الشوق وغلبني غلبني." When I'm far away from you, my life is torment. Don't stay away from me. My tears are all I have. I live alone with them, far from you, defeated by my longing, defeated. Kulthum's voice was like a warm light suddenly flooding in, bursting through the darkness, where I was trapped in a tunnel of fear, shock, homesickness, anxiety, and the constant, exhausting expectation that the worst was about to happen. The melody and music rang out in the silence of the night, which seemed to be empty of everything but the sound of the bombers and the specters of death that hovered around us on every side. Kulthum's voice in all its magnificence filled the air around us as we sat despondently, staring into the sky of December's final night. The sound surged through me like a concentrated dose of some drug rushing into my bloodstream. I hadn't listened to any music since the war began. I'd heard only jets, missiles, ambulances, wails and tears and shrieks of terror. And now suddenly the music was flowing and expanding into the darkness around us here in this border city at the very edge of Gaza, while the brutal war still raged on, killing young and old with rocket fire or the heavy masonry of shattered houses. When I'm far from you, my life is torment, and what a torment it is, I thought to myself. My parents are far away in a burning city, and from where I'm sitting, I can see the flash of bombs raining down on them. I've left my home behind, and I'm stricken by fear and grief and pain, consumed by worry and regretting ever having wanted to return to Gaza, only to live through this massacre. Surely there is no torment worse than living with the constant fear of imminent collective death. I'm defeated by longing, defeated. Nights away from you break me to pieces. Abu Rami and Abu Karam sang along, swaying in time to the music, like the war was over, like the party was about to begin. The jets continued to pound Khan Yunis furiously, but every time we heard an explosion, Kulthum's singing would follow, washing away the terrible sound like the sea erases drawings in the sand. Her music would fill many moments of desperation and fear in the days to come. On every cold January night when Abu Karam and Abu Rami insisted that we listen to the voice of the legendary lady. Thank you. Thank you to Mohammed Zazouk for this text and to Katharine Halls for the very fresh translation. She just sent it to me yesterday. Today, now I'd like to invite Somaia to read the memorial that she has written for her sister, Heba Abu Nada.
Thank you. The war in Gaza began in a blink of an eye. Scenes from my life flashed before me, but when I lost my sister, time stopped. We were sitting in the so-called safe zone at my aunt's house. My heart was about to burst from fear after so much bloodshed. My mind couldn't process the horror. Every inch of me trembled, but she was there. Heba, the warm light that calms the soul, she held my hand, smiling, telling me that everything will be okay. She was soft like a soft feather. My thoughts came to rest in her shoulder. Before the building next door was target, Heba was no longer right beside me. Her presence felt light, like a fading halo. Then the bombing came. The house collapsed on our heads. I felt nothing, not even the thing that I had feared the most. My brain switched to survivor. I could no longer think or feel. How many words can the mind create to escape the reality? In my dream, I stored all the emotion I yearned to feel in different universes. I have always escaped through sleep, detaching to reach those places where the feeling I longed for were familiar. When I lost Heba, my brain tried to protect me by shuttering everything down. It could not hold that weight. I don't know why we were so deeply tied to our dreams. Maybe they are the last attempt to refuse the reality. I kept dreaming of Heba. She spends time with me, we go shopping, we have small talks, we laugh. She's always happy that we finally met again after a long time. On the 20th of October, early in that doomsday, Heba laid in morgue. I tried hard to sleep. My heart ached. We were sitting in the hospital floor after being displaced and bombed. We were still in shock. Burying Heba was one of the most hardest tasks in the war. We had so many questions. Where can we bury her? How can we move her body with the bombing everywhere? Would be there any place for her? None of her friends will be around to say goodbye to her. In that morning, I closed my eyes, holding all these questions, unable to process that they had to take in the place of a grief. I felt half asleep and saw Heba. She was leaving this earth, smiling as if it released from all the pain she had held. She looked at me, then rose into the sky. I woke up. My mother asked, have you seen her? Have anyone seen her? I nodded, yes, Mom. Heba flew away. She was happy. My mom cited, Alhamdulillah. Now she can be with her uncle and grandfather in the heaven. The days that followed were brutal. We were displaced, running to secure food and water. My brain stayed in survival mode. There was no room to think or grieve. Each night I tried to sleep, hoping to see her again, but I couldn't. I hadn't said goodbye. At first, Heba visited me. She was calm and happy, but I would scream, "Why did you leave me?" I cried myself out in this dream, looking at her, knowing she was no longer here. She only smiled at me like an angel. Weeks passed. Every night I waited for her. Then the dreams changed. Heba appeared alive, but very sick. In each dream, I tried to save her, to find a treatment, and every time I failed, I woke my heart in pain for failing to rescue her. Each night she said she died again in a different way. As the war dragged on, I missed her even more. I longed for her reassurance, for the words that everything would be okay. This surrounded my family. Nothing breaks you like the helplessness of being unable to protect the loved one, the ones that you love. There was no silver lining, no sign the war would end. I began to think of leaving Gaza, but how? How could I take my family? Heba was the eldest. In my dream, I reached for her, asking what to do, how to rescue our family. This dream became conversations. I couldn't remember the words, but I remember speaking with her. The moment soothed me like a cool rain in a burning summer. I don't want to wake up, I thought. I want to stay and talk to her. This dream were the only reality, not the hell that we are living. After I left Gaza, the work continued. My family remained. I still could not grieve. Life outside Gaza moved on, normal conversations, normal routines. But I was torn. My body was outside Gaza, but my mind and heart were still inside. During that period, my dream changed again. Heba was visited me. Take me shopping, buy me clothes and shoes. It felt as if she were preparing me to live normal life again. She hugged me more, talked to me more, and though telling me, try to live. But I kept walking up, leaving her again and again and again. I miss her. I miss her so much. I want to cry every second. What does life mean without her? Heba was buried in the beginning of the war. Yeah, good. I didn't even know where. I couldn't visit her grave or lay flowers. I still need to weep until my eyes are dry. I cling to my dreams. I want to escape reality and keep talking to her. Heba was meaning of life to me. And I don't know what life means without her. It has been 2 years since losing her. I admit that I have never met someone so extraordinary in my whole life. And in all Beller University, I wish to have her as my sister. I believe that in every version of her existence, she would be as perfect as she was. For now, I must face the reality that she's no longer here.
الله يرحمه. شكرا يا سمية انك جيتي وهي فعلا معنا. Thank you, Somaia, for being here. We have one last piece, a short piece of prose, and then there's a final poem that I would invite all of us to recite together if you feel called to do so. So the last prose piece that we have is an excerpt from The Hollow Half by Sarah Aziza.
Yes.
And the German is going to be read, the German translation is by Nuria Behlul. Yes, and we've already introduced Sarah Aziza before and The Hollow Half before, so this is another excerpt from the book. And because we're running a little bit late, I would suggest Lamis. Okay, perfect. Okay, so are you okay? Lamis, you're ready? So Lamis will be reading in German. Thank you.
Gaza hat sich der Ablehnung hingegeben, schrieb Mahmoud Darwish. Hunger und Ablehnung, Durst und Ablehnung, Vertreibung und Ablehnung, Folter und Ablehnung, Belagerung und Ablehnung, Tod und Ablehnung. Feinde mögen Gaza besiegen. Die stürmische See mag eine Insel besiegen. Sie mögen alle ihre Bäume fällen. Mögen ihr die Knochen brechen, mögen Panzer in ihre Kinder und Frauen pflanzen, mögen sie im Meer, im Sand oder im Blut ertränken. Aber sie wird keine Lügen wiederholen und den Invasoren Ja sagen. Gazas Ehrlichkeit ist ein aus einem Fluch entsprungener Ruhm. Dort ist Gewalt nicht in Bürokratie gekleidet, Fortschritt eine entblößte Lüge. Solche Vorwände sind dem Reich der Nationalstaaten vorbehalten, wo das Recht zu töten Teil der gesetzlich ermächtigten Regierungsgewalt ist. Wenn das Ziel sowohl Herrschaft als auch Unschuld ist, wird Widersinn erforderlich. Aber in Gaza sucht der Siedler weder Land noch Recht. Stattdessen verwandelt er den Streifen in ein Lager der Maßlosigkeit, in einheimisches Fleisch, vermisst Gazas Zerstörung, um sie erbärmlich und barbarisch werden zu lassen. Jede Front braucht ihren Wilden, den verachteten anderen, der die Überlegenheit tragen soll. Zu diesem Unleben verurteilt kann Gaza nur als Nein existieren. Dieses Nein ist vollumfänglich. Sie hat die Verzweiflung der Beschwichtigung oder Bitte schon lange hinter sich gelassen. Gaza, al-Muqawama, Mutter des Widerstands. Jeden Tag bringt sie ihre Verweigerung zu verlieren oder zu verschwinden zur Welt. Wenn wir Gaza treffen, in einem Traum, wird sie uns vielleicht nicht erkennen, denn Gaza wurde aus Feuer geboren, staunt Darwish, während er Gazas im Körper getragenen Kampf mit den Kompromissen jener außerhalb des Streifens Lebenden vergleicht. Das Verhältnis von Gazas Bewohnerinnen zu Widerstand ist gleich dem von Haut zu Knochen. Weit weg von ihr aufgewachsen, staune auch ich über Gaza. Die Atmung ihrer warmen Aura, wenn die Familie beisammen saß. Pochende Geschichten, die Berührung von Handflächen und Wangen. Die Bilder von einem friedlichen Gaza im Fernsehen taten mir weh. Am Strand meines Vaters tummeln sich schwimmenden Menschen, Kindersilhouetten vor einer flüssigen Sonne. Aber in meinen Augen waren diese flüchtigen Eindrücke immer verzerrt, durch übergroßes Leid ladiert. Meine Liebe für Gaza war wehmutig, oft hinkend, immer etwas hilflos. Israels Belagerung bewährt mehr als nur Bestrafung. Es hat einen Großteil der Welt davon überzeugt, dass Gaza, wenn schon nicht verkommen, dann unbedeutend sei, zurückgeblieben. Aber was, wenn das genaue Gegenteil wahr ist? Was, wenn unsere Zukunft auf solch vergessenen Landstreifen beginnt? Vielleicht ist nichts quälender als zu wissen, Gazas Himmel ist unserer. Es gibt keine Unschuld für uns, die wir uns getrennt von ihrem Schicksal träumen. Wir sind mitbedeutend, schaffen und erhalten, haben verflochtene Realitäten. Die Entfernung zwischen uns ist eher zeitlich als räumlich. Gaza galoppiert vor uns, zeigt uns, wo unser Verlauf uns hinführen wird oder wo er endet. Gazas Leid ist keine Theorie, weder Poesie noch Mythos. Es ist eine Flamme. Ich kann nicht wissen, wie sie brennt, aber ich kann ihr meine Vorstellungskraft als Schülerin der ihrigen anbieten. Aus den absonderlichsten Räumen, den hässlichsten Wesen, den extremsten Formen von Erbärmlichkeit entspringt Schönheit und Auflehnung im Überfluss, bemerkt der palästinensische Schriftsteller Tariq Bakouni. Was werden wir lernen, wenn wir uns Richtung Rand bewegen, Gift des Komforts opfern, vom Erbärmlichen und Absonderlichen lernen? Vielleicht finden wir eine unnachgiebige Frau, die Dornen aus ihrem Feld gräbt. Nein, ihre Waffe, ihre Saat, durch die brutale Ordnung verbannt, Mutter des Widerstands, Mütter derer, die weiter träumen.
Okay, everyone, we've come to the end of this evening almost. Thank you all for coming. And we've made it through. We have one poem left, which is actually in your program in Arabic, English, and German. And the reason it's in your program is that we would love for you all to join us in reading it together. But before we do that, I just want to say thank you to Katharine Halls and Alaa Alqaisi for curating this event. Thank you to Somaia Abu Nada for being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to Alaa Alqaisi and Batool Akleen for joining us as well, and to all the other writers and translators whose work has been featured here today. Thank you to Lamis Ammar, the very hardworking Lamis Ammar, for the beautiful reading. And thank you to Sonia Longolius, I can't see you, and Yannicka Gelinek and the rest of the Literaturhaus team and the tech team for organizing and hosting this event. And thank you to all of you for coming. Before we close, I'd like to point you towards a fundraiser. It's also in your program, which I don't have a copy of at the moment, but at the back of your program, you'll see a QR code for a fundraiser for Palestinian writers in Gaza. So if you please do check it out and take a look at their work, and if you feel called to do so, please support them with a donation. And you'll also find in your program places where you can find a lot more Palestinian literature in translation, including PalFest, Publishers for Palestine, and Arab Lit. There are links to all of that. And yeah, there is the fundraiser. And actually, several of the writers that that have been featured here today are also in this fundraiser. I can see Batool Abu Akleen, Mohammed Zazu. Yeah, I think those are the two that we featured here today. So yes, I think that's it. I will introduce the final poem, which is by Samer Abu Hawesh, who's a Palestinian writer and translator. He was born in 1972 in Lebanon to a Palestinian refugee family. He's published 10 volumes of poetry, and he's also a prolific translator of English language literature into Arabic, including works by Charles Bukowski, Langston Hughes, Jack Kerouac, Jan Martel, Dennis Johnson, and many other writers. And what we're going to do is, and I hope you will join us. Please do. I think it will be good for all of us to have a moment, have this collective voice all together. What we're going to do is we're going to begin with the Arabic, with Somaia reading the Arabic, and then after a few lines, I'm going to come in with the English, And after a few lines, Lamis will come in with the German. And then you're welcome to join in. And you can join in at any point. You can come and go as you please. If you like a few words, you can just chime in with a few words. And then whatever you feel you can do, basically. And
كل شجرة كل عشبة
every
كل دمعة
tear, every
كل صرخة
scream, every air, every hope, every supplication, every secret, every well, every prayer, every song, every ballad, every book, every paper, every color, every ray, every cloud, every
Jeder
rain,
Regen,
every
jeder
drop of
Tropfen,
rain, every
jede
drip of
Schweißperle,
sweat, every
jedes
lisp,
Lispen,
every
jedes
stutter,
Stottern,
every Amma, mother,
jedes
every
Jabba,
Abba, father,
Papa,
every
jeder
shadow,
Schatten,
every
jedes
light,
Licht,
every
jede
little
kleine
hand
Hand,
that drew in a
die
little
einen
notebook,
Baum,
a
eine
tree,
Straße,
or a
ein
house.
Haus, ein Herz, eine Familie mit Vater und Mutter und Geschwistern und Haustieren in ein kleines Heft malt. Jede Sehnsucht, jede Möglichkeit, jeder angekommene oder nie angekommene jeder Liebs, der sich in fernen Wolken verfängt, jeder verzweifelte Moment vor jedem,
Every
jeder
gasp of
Reisekoffer,
love.
auf jedem Kleiderschrank, jedes Bücherregal, jedes Regalbrett,
Every
jedes
shelf,
Minaret,
every
jeder
minaret,
Teppich,
every rug,
jedes
every bell toll in
Glockenläuter,
every church,
in jeder
every rosary,
Kirche,
every holy
jeder
praise,
Rosenkranz,
every
jeder
arrival,
Obst,
every goodbye,
jede
every good
Ankunft,
morning,
jeder
every
Abschied,
thank God,
jedes guten
every
Morgen,
alarossi, my
jedes
pleasure,
Gott sei Dank,
every halan
jedes
sameya, leave me
Alarossi,
alone, every
Alarossi,
rock, every
aber
wave,
gerne
every
doch,
grain of sand,
jedes
every hairdo, every mirror, every glance in every mirror, every cat, every
jeder
meow,
Felsen, jede
every happy
Welle,
donkey, every sad
jedes
donkey's
Sandkorn,
gaze, every pot,
jede
every
Frisur,
vapor rising from
jeder
every pot,
Spiegel,
every
jeder
scent,
Blick in den
every
Spiegel,
bowl, every school cue, every school shoes, every ring of the bell, every blackboard, every piece of chalk, every school costume,
كل
every
حمار
mabruk
سعيد،
ma'ajak.
كل نظرة حمار حزينة،
Congratulations on the baby.
كل
Every with
قدر،
بسلامتك,
كل
condolences.
بخار
Every عين
يتصاعد
الحسود
من كل
تبلى
قدر،
بعمى.
كل
May the
رائحة،
envious be blinded.
كل
Every
وعاء،
photograph,
كل
every
طابور
person in every
مدرسي،
photograph, every
كل
نيالك,
حذاء
how lucky.
مدرسي، كل رنة
Every grain of
جرس،
wheat in every bird's
كل
gullet, every lock
صبورة،
of hair, every
كل
hair knot,
طبشورة،
every hand, every foot,
كل
every
مريل،
football, every finger, every
مريالة،
nail, every bicycle, every
كل
rider on
مبروك
every
مع
bicycle, every
أجاكم،
turn of
كل
air
العوض
fanning from
بسلامتك،
every bicycle,
كل عين حسود
every bad joke,
تبلى بالعمى،
every mean joke,
كل صورة
every laugh, every
فوتوغرافية،
smile, every curse,
كل
every
من في
yearning, every
كل
fight,
صورة
every city, grandma, every
فوتوغرافية،
CD, grandpa,
كل
every
نيالك،
meadow,
كل
every
شتنالك،
flower, every tree,
كل
every
حبة
grove,
قمح
every olive,
في
every
حوصلة،
orange, every
كل
plastic
عصفور،
grove covered with dust
كل
on an
خصلة
abandoned
شعر،
counter, every
كل
portrait of a
ربطة
martyr
شعر،
hanging on a wall since forever,
كل
every
يد،
gravestone, every surah,
كل
every verse,
قدم،
every hymn,
كل كرة
every hajj
قدم،
mabruk,
كل أصبع،
ما
كل
يحج,
ضفر،
every
كل دراجة
lullaby,
هوائية، كل
every
راكب
clothesline, every hot skirt,
على كل دراجة هوائية،
every joyful dress, every torn trousers, every day
كل
spun
زيتونة،
sweater, every
كل
button, every nail,
برتقالة،
every song,
كل وردة
every
اصطناعية
ballad, every
يعلوها
mirror,
غبار
every peg,
على
every bench, every
منضدة
shelf,
مهجورة،
every
كل صورة
dream, every
شهيد
illusion, every
معلقة
hope, every
منذ دهر على
disappointment, every
جدار،
hand holding another
كل
hand,
شاهد
every hand
قبر،
alone,
كل صورة،
every
كل
terrifying
آية،
thought, every
كل
beautiful thought,
ترتيلة،
every whisper, every
كل
touch, every
ترنيمة،
street, every house, every
كل
room, every
حج
balcony,
مبروك
every eye, every
بس
tear, every word,
مشهور،
every letter, every
كل
name,
يلا
every voice,
تنام،
every
يلا
name, every
تنام،
house, every
كل
name, every
دبدوب
face, every name,
أحمر
every
في كل
cloud,
عيد،
every name,
حب،
every
كل
rose,
حبل
every
غسيل،
name, every
كل
spear of
تنورة
grass,
مشتهاة،
every image,
كل فستان
every
يصنع
name,
البهجة،
every
كل
kiss,
بنطال
every eye,
ممزق،
every tear,
كل
every yamma,
كنزة
every yaba, every
تغزل
name,
الأيام، كل زر،
every
كل
name,
مسمار، كل
every
أغنية،
name,
كل
كل
اسم،
every
موال،
name,
كل
every
مرآة،
name,
كل اسم،
كل
every name,
كل اسم،
every
جبل،
name,
كل
every
مقعد،
name,
كل رف،
every name,
كل حلم،
every name,
كل
كل
اسم،
وهم،
every name,
كل اسم،
كل
every
أمل،
name,
كل
every
خيبة،
name,
كل يد
every
تحضن
name,
يدا،
every name,
كل يد وحيدة
every name,
كل فكرة
every
شاردة
name.
Palestine will be free.